son, the Sharks only get one. Let's talk about it right now on Teal Town After Dark. Good evening, everyone. It is December 8th, 2019. The San Jose Sharks come into Florida and only get 2 goals. Unfortunately, they give up a lot, including a lot of power play goals. But that's what it is. The Sharks lose this one 4-1 to the Florida Panthers. Waka waka. Welcome to Teal Town After Dark. This is your live and interactive Sharks postgame. We do this after every single game, so do us a favor. If you want to be part of the show, chat with us and fellow Sharks fans on the YouTube chat, on the page, or the app. Follow us on the social, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, Reddit, and of course now on Discord. You can check us out, including our After Dark chats on there as well. And of course, for more Sharks content, visit tealtownusa.com. And don't forget, a new Pucknologist will drop tonight at 8 o'clock. So with that, good evening, everyone. You are stuck with me. I am Erik, otherwise known as PuckGuy14. Glad to have you on this one. And you know what? I'm going to get it right here with Chris. Chris, good to see you, my friend. November wasn't really indicative of who this team really is, unfortunately. They also had a light schedule, and they also were at home. It's not good. It's not good, and that good November, kind of covered up the little rough spots that this team was in, and we're seeing them again. Plain and simple, we're seeing it again one more time, and it's getting bad, and it's getting bad. So, alrighty, let's get at it. So the Sharks, yeah, exactly. I like how they broadcast. They felt the need to keep telling us about what a great improvement today was, since they were giving up 6 goals or whatever. You just got outscored 11-2 in the state of Florida. 11-2. Your top power play, or your top penalty kill unit, has let in 2 power play goals in the last 2 games. And granted, they are dangerous teams. Stamkos alone is going to scare you. Barkov with Florida also going to get things going for the Panthers. Well, we saw that today on the 2-0 goal. You saw little things come out here and there, and guess what? It hurts. And of course, things don't start well off at all with the Sharks. For the 4th time in 5 games? And correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but the Sharks allow the first goal of the game in the first 5 minutes. So, before that, my goodness, let's talk about the little testiness that went on between Erik Karlsson and Mike Hoffman. And Michael Meyer. Yes, I'll get this on here. Super chat $4.99, supporting Teal Town USA, says don't spew all the Pollyanna crap. Appreciate it. And granted, if there were some positive, we would love to share positives, but at the same time, you got to call it out. You have to call things out, and that's the problem here, is that there's stuff that's being called out that have constantly happened over and over again. I mean, what else is there to do? I mean, yeah, okay, they only allowed 4 goals tonight. La-di freaking da. Oh, good for you. And like Ian says, where is it? 2 or fewer. Seriously, 2 or fewer. I should have brought this up beforehand, but 2 or fewer. Yeah, the Sharks are doing 2 or fewer, and not in the good way right now. You had 1 goal tonight against the Florida Panthers. We'll call it tonight. It's getting dark outside. We'll call it tonight, all right? It was 5 o'clock start over there. Don't at me. But you look at it, and we'll go through the last few games, okay? Sharks lose 5-1. They gave up one goal, or they score one goal. Tampa 7-1. They get another goal. Carolina, they scored 2 goals and lost in the shootout. You got 2 more goals against Washington. That's 6. You see a pattern developing here? I mean, I can go into November if we want. You know, I mean, the last time they allowed, okay, they got 4 goals against the Desert Dogs. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Got to hydrate when it goes slow. Okay, there we go. You go back to the Winnipeg game where they lost 5-1. They've only scored 2 or fewer all but one game. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7. In 7 games, they've been 2 or fewer themselves in 6 of the last 7 games. With the talent that you have on this squad, and we're not even going to get to the power play just yet because, oh my God, you know, but you have Evander Kane, and we'll get to him a little bit later. And I can and trust me, I'm a little upset as he is tonight about that hit. You get Evander Kane. You have Tomas Hertl, Logan Couture, Timo Meier, Kevin LeBanc. This is his contract year. He's supposed to make a big one. You know, you have legends in Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton. You have 2 of the greatest offensive defensemen in the game today that's not named John Carlson right now because the Caps, John Carlson's on just a ridiculous roll. And you have key cogs that can do something like Melker Karlsson or Marcus Sorensen. You know, you have those little guys that'll key in every now and then. Dylan Gambrell's starting to become one of those guys. But when you have that much offensive talent, and in the last 7 games, 6 of them you either scored 2 or fewer, that's unacceptable. And then on the other hand, where we love 2 or fewer, you know, you see and I'll just use the defense alone. You have 5 goals against Florida, 5 goals against Washington, 3 goals technically in the shootout. You know, then 7 goals against Tampa. It's like, oh boy, that's not good. That's not good at all. Ian, the Sharks have good players, but they're not a good team, and that's the reality. And you know what? And I get where AJ was talking about it the other night, where Erik Karlsson's a good defenseman, but he's maybe not the right type of player for San Jose. I get that. And I get that a lot more versus than, well, we got 92 million reasons to do that. Whatever. He's going to get that money either way. Yeah, it's going to tie us up in everything. But, you know, it is what it is. And that's the thing. Is he may not be that guy that the Sharks needed, but this is a trickle effect at what Doug Wilson has done. And it's nothing disrespectful at all. But here's the thing. In 2011, they trade, you know, a number of guys to get Brent Burns. Well, everybody was saying, well, we already have Dan Boyle. What are we doing here? I think this is what DW is trying to think. He's already trying to think ahead to getting the next guy. You know, getting Erik Karlsson now rather than that. You know, so that could be something. That could be something there. Ian, maybe you see a change, but you still have Martin Jones in goal, and I don't think a new coach can effectively negate that. There's something going on with Martin Jones. And correct me if I'm wrong, chat. He got injured, December of 2016, where he missed almost like 2-3 weeks, and he just hasn't been the same since. And that's a concerning thing. And he'll have these flashes in the pan. I mean, look, he was named 3rd star of the week last week. Now, you know, you look at the game tonight. And, you know, it's just rough. And these guys, yeah, it was an 875 save percentage, but it's just rough. And it's tough. And it's tough and it's painful, you know. And whether it's bad positioning, bad technique, Chris, you just said that. Thank you very much. You know, or Dell, you know, something's going on. Whether it's, you know, psyche, positioning, you know, and there's a number of people have mentioned his positioning. I get that, but at the same time, you know, why aren't we catching that? Or for the power play, you know, we enter this game with 10 straight games without a power play goal. The last time they scored a power play goal was November 16th against Detroit. And early on, and I asked Kurz this on Twitter, you know, when was the first time we mentioned it? Because that was the first time that PDB was like, no, I'm not concerned about the power play. Well, if you weren't concerned then, I hope as heck you're concerned now when you get like 0 for 22 on the power play. Yeah, they got a goal tonight. We'll get to it. In fact, let's get to it now. So, entering tonight, the Sharks have always had a tough time entering. Chris. Yes. 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 If you remember the beginning of Pucknology After Dark in 2015, this was it. Is the Great November the new? We won 3 games at the end of February. Yeah. Plain and simple. You know, or we had that stretch where we beat Chicago twice and Anaheim twice. Oh, they're here. You know, for real. But, you know, that's the thing. Well, anyways, get off of my soapbox there. But let's get at it. All right. You saw right away, and this is the first time that Erik Karlsson and Mike Hoffman have been on the ice since their last time playing together in Ottawa. And if you want to look at all that controversy with Hoffman's fiance and Erik Karlsson's wife, go right ahead. But obviously it trickled over, and there were some cross checks and some smack talk being thrown. No penalties though, and that seemed like that was it. You know, Hurdle not being 100% has been a huge drag on the power play. Yeah. You all need healthy players, and of course we know about Radim Shimmick. He went home for a little procedure on his knee, and honestly, I don't mean to disrespect, but we've heard about Tomas Hertl having some setbacks with his knee. We had Joe Thornton had setbacks with his knee. Of course, Shimmick here. Let's not forget Raffi Torres' setback when he was here in 2013. He never recovered. He had like a 6-game stretch where he was on a roll, but he never really recovered. What's going on with these knee problems? There's definitely a trickle here. It just doesn't seem right that we're getting these guys back in play. And you know, Shimmick's injury was back in March. And usually 5 months is usually where these guys are starting to get back in the thing. And they said, oh, yeah, you'll be ready for opening night. And then what came back in November? So, you know, and James Abel. And the Penguins have no Crosby, Hornquist, Dumoulin, Bugstad, Malkin, and they're missed 12 games, and they're a top 5 team. Yeah, you know. So Hoffman and EK65, just they they have a little word of mouth, and everything is already so. Alden, ready to roll. Sick of this. Just rip the band-aid out. See, my mouth was just like the Sharks during these last 2 games. Just didn't want to cooperate properly. Just rip the Band-Aid off already. Blow it up. I can't see them wanting to blow it up. I can't see it. So let's get at it. 404 in. LeBanc takes a hooking call. That's his 12th minor of the season. I mean, it's already bad enough. It's already bad enough that he's was serving so many bench minors. Now it's like, okay, man, come on. You got to keep your legs moving. Kendall Coyne Schofield called that out today. So there's all that in. Looks like I'm going to get another person to jump on here. Thank goodness. So give me a sec here. We'll get that all set up. But seeing a lot of comments in the chat, Georgie Villeneuve, get to you on here. This team is ran out of excuses. It's time for changes. So Ian, I'm trying to get a hold of you there. So just if you're jumping on here, cool. All right, let me get Ian positioned in here. Of course, if you want to be a part of the show, do us a favor. Jump in the super chat. We appreciate the donations. Felix, I see you made up for your swear jar, so thank you very much on that one. I am pleased to be joined now by not Hockey and Ghosts. No, I am joined by the one and only Ian Blogs Hockey on the Twitter machine. Ian, good evening to you, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Chat, let me know if you can't. We'll fix that accordingly.
Here's the thing, right? Like, I'm just seeing a lot in the chat, and this is why I wanted to jump in. I'm going to try and do my best to minimize background noise because it's an early game, so obviously there's going to be craziness going on behind me. So if there's background noise that you're not used to hearing, I apologize in advance. But
understandable.
People are talking like in the chat about blowing it up. How can you blow it up? You're completely spent to the cap. You have maybe one liquid asset in Brendan Dillon. Everything else is locked in long term. You talk about Martin Jones. Like, Martin Jones' buyout would be an 8-year buyout if you bought him out this spring.
Yep.
That's an 8-year buyout. That's bad.
And you're still making up for what Paul Martin's buyout still?
I think that's done after this year.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the point. I mean, that no offense to Paul Martin, but he's been gone a bit now.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, you're gonna pay for that mistake for 8 years, and it'll be fine. Like, the last 4 years of that, I think it's only it's just under $2 million. But here's the problem. So you buy out Martin Jones in June. Let's just for hypothetical sake, we'll go down this rabbit hole. You buy out Martin Jones in June. You're going to be paying for, you're probably not going to get a top flight goaltender with that money because goaltenders don't go free agent.
Nope.
So you're probably going to end up with maybe you get moderately better goaltending, but because of the buyout, you're still paying like you're paying for a top flight goalie. Like, the Sharks are screwed either way. Because you buy out Martin Jones, again, down the rabbit hole. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but so you have that buyout money, and then you put some money towards a new goaltender because obviously Aaron Dell's not going to be the guy to step up and take it. Coronash is an NHL ready, so you're going to have to bring in a guy who's going to make, who makes maybe $3-4 million. You're still paying the same amount of money for probably the same goaltending. That's the problem with this team. That's the scary part.
And that's the thing. It's like, where the Sharks are at a crossroads. I mean, you have no first round pick. You don't have a third. Well, you have the Phillies third. You don't have a fourth or a sixth in this draft, or your own seventh. You have 2 picks from Washington and Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, seventh, whatever. I mean, I know the Sharks. That's a huge important pick for them, the seventh round. But I mean, a 7th rounder is whatever. It's the lack of the top pick. You're probably, like, this is the sad thing is Ottawa's probably scoring 2 top 10 picks this upcoming season. And that's bad. That wasn't, you didn't make the Erik Karlsson trade to to give Ottawa 2 top 10 picks.
No, and all of a sudden they go from the guy who gives up the fourth, essentially the fourth overall pick to Colorado, to now being Colorado this season and rubbing their hands like, yes, oh please, don't make the playoffs, and now we get a shot at it. And Ian, we all know, hashtag that's so Sharks, that whatever pick that the ball picks, you know that's going to go number one.
Well, at that point you fire Doug Wilson, because how can you not at that point?
And that's
because if you miss like a top 5 pick, even I'd argue a top 10. If you miss a top 10 pick, you set your franchise back probably at least 3 to 4 years.
Right. And
you lose that pick altogether. It's not good, right? I mean, that's not good. This team, it's on a little bit of a downward trend. You're talking earlier, and I know you want to get back to the game here, but I mean, you were talking earlier about, how like the talent, like, yeah, there's a lot of talented individuals on this team, but there's not a lot of support for those individuals. The cracks are getting very glaring. You look at, I think the Sharks have 2 good lines. They have a good first line and they have a good fourth line. Their second and third line is where they're having the most trouble, because you have a guy like, let's say, like Tomas Hertl's obviously not 100%. We've seen him pulled from games, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like as he goes, the team's going to go. You look at the power play. I don't think the fact that the power play has fallen off and Hertl's hasn't looked himself is that's definitely not a coincidence. Yeah. And, you want a lot, you're looking at other things too. I mean, Patrick Marleau, for what you're paying for him, I guess you're getting decent play out of Patrick Marleau for what you're paying for him, but he's not Patrick Marleau anymore. Joe Thornton isn't Joe Thornton anymore. No. So there's 2/3 of your third line that's supposed to be, on a team, on a Peter DeBoer team where you're supposed to be able to roll 4 lines of hockey. He has 2 lines he can roll. So, I mean, as much as I think Peter DeBoer is an idiot and I don't really like Peter DeBoer, but like, I'm at the point now where I can't just lay this all at Peter DeBoer's feet anymore.
Nope.
Because Doug Wilson did this to the team. Doug Wilson gambled, thought that he would get last year's Thornton and kids were going to come up and step in and be able to play roles. None of that's happened.
No.
None of it.
And that's the big thing. We were sold on Shemolevsky and Chekovich and Blichfeld.
I think Shemolevsky, I still have high hopes for. I think just came back from injury, but that was still a same thing. That was the same thing. Like, you're expecting a lot of guys to just come in and steal jobs. And it was blatantly obvious in camp that wasn't happening. Like, we saw that from training camp.
Which is scary. I mean, I think it was obvious that they were expecting these kids to make the big jump to fill these holes, to kind of start the mini retooling while still having a contending team, and it just didn't happen. It didn't materialize.
Yeah, and I think, for the longest time, I think everyone, including me, forgot how old Brent Burns was. Starting to show it a little this year, isn't he? 34, going on 35.
Scary to think.
Like, yeah, it's, because you look at Brent Burns and he definitely, he doesn't look that, but his play this year, you're starting to see it.
Yeah. It's frustrating. I mean, because you're at a crossroads, and you're hoping, speculation, that these guys can be spackle and put this team back together. It just isn't happening.
Yeah.
And the developed players, well, don't get me started with who runs the Kuhre. He's had good talent, and when the good talent is there, they're quickly brought up.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, to Roy Sommer's credit, he has basically changed that. He has coached that team to be ready to make the jump to the NHL team. Like, he is always, a lot of people crap on Roy Sommer, but I give Roy Sommer a lot of credit because he's basically coached through 3 coaching regimes now that have sometimes drastically changed the way this team plays. And he's matched the Barracuda /Worcester
Yeah.
to play that style of hockey,
Yeah. Actually,
to be
four.
ready. Four,
Actually,
yeah.
four. Yeah. Sutter, Ron Wilson, Todd McClellan, and PDB. So
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, you give him credit for that. You give him credit for that, and that's fine. But it's like, mm, it's rough. So let's get at it. Let's actually review this game really
Okay.
quick. Yandel scores a power play goal. Make it 1-0 again. Fourth time in the last 5 games that the Sharks given up a goal. First 5 minutes into the game. Nearly, 4 minutes later, Alexander Barkov, who's, if he's not in Florida, is probably like one of the most talked about players in the league.
For sure.
He gets his 10th from Dadonov and Huberdeau, another guy that's that's on the rise big time. If the Sharks get a break, they get Ekblad interferes, and goes off to box, and the Sharks score on the power play off the draw there. LeBanc, his 8th of the season. Carlson and Kane, and that's their first power play goal in 11 games. Last one, like I said, November 16th against Detroit. You know, I mean, great. That's terrific. But at the same time, 1 for 23 with this talent, it just is scary to me. So only down 2-1. They were outshot 12-9 in there. Both teams were 1-for-1 in the power play. Second period, this is where I was got frustrating. And you tell me if I'm like completely off, Ian. Kane takes a blindside hit from Uyghur. There was no call.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen these blindside hits before where it's shoulder. It looks like it was shoulder on shoulder and glances the head.
Yeah, look, I don't know if there's because you only saw the one angle, so I don't know. Like, I don't want to say, oh, that was a terrible head hit. It wasn't a good hit. Like, it was definitely a predatory hit. Was it a head hit? I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if it was a shoulder that carried through to the head. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard, but do I like that hit? No. Do I think that's a hit that players have been suspended for previously? Yep.
Yep, absolutely. And this one goes no call, and it gets Kane upset. And at times he has a short fuse. He gets back on the ice and goes after Uyghur, drops the gloves with him, and then he gets 2, 5, and 10.
Yeah.
And the one thing I mentioned on Twitter is that this is the ref's fault. If they even call a 2-minute minor, for a blindside hit or interference or whatnot, if you call something, this doesn't happen. And
yeah,
instead,
this is a really you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't situation for Evander Kane, because like no one on his team went and stuck up for him. And I know that Kane got a lot of crap on Twitter because obviously the end result was obviously he gets 2, 5, and 10, which obviously that sucks. That's that sucks. There's no two ways around it. And that hurt the team. Like that really impaired the team because again, this team doesn't have forward depth.
Yeah.
And so, when you're trying to manufacture goals when they're not coming, having a guy who you pay $7 million a year for sit in the box for 17 minutes isn't exactly ideal. Nope. As for the play, though, I mean, this is the kind of thing, right? Like when the meatheads, I should say that, but I'm gonna go with it. When the people who are like super like, oh, this is when guys stick up for themselves and they could just give everyone a concussion, none of this shit happened. No, this shit happened all the time.
Right.
But that being said, when those guys say, oh, the instigator rule, that's what ruined hockey. Yes, that's what, this is exactly the kind of play they're talking about, right. Where a guy makes a predatory hit and then somebody goes to answer the bell, or even the same player goes to answer the bell, because obviously the refs didn't do anything, tries to take matters into his own hand and then gets slapped with the instigator. Mm-hmm. That being said, I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen that called, including that call.
Exactly.
So there's that problem, right? I mean, I don't really. It sucks because I understand what Kane's doing, and I understand that you know what?
It's a damn if you
Like
do,
if
damn
I
if you
put,
don't, like you said.
yeah, if I'm in Vander Kane's shoes, I'm probably gonna go do the exact same damn thing.
Right.
I'm gonna go, and if no one else is gonna, if my team isn't gonna stick up for me and the refs aren't gonna protect me, well, what other option do I have, right? And you could say, okay, well, maybe you wait till later in the game. So what? I can get ejected.
Right.
Like you can't wait. You just can't win if you're a Vander Kane. So I mean, I see it from both sides. I will give him a pass for this, even though I think it definitely hurt the team. But I don't know what else the hell he's supposed to do.
Yeah. And there's that. It's tough because you are upset. You have a guy that went after you, and honestly, I think not to relate it to anything outside the rink, but if somebody hit you on the side of the head, you'd be pissed and want to go after them too. I totally get that. Um, but it hurt the team. It hurt the team in the long run, and unfortunately, right after the 2-minute instigator was ended, a power play influencer, Matheson, gets his first of the year from Ekblad and Vetrano at 6:32. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the thing. Those are the little things that you kind of go, okay, they just scored, make it a 2-goal lead for Florida. No, but I mean, yeah, that's the case. But at the same time, you have that psychological battle.
Yeah,
And
it's
I think that's kind of been with the Sharks for a long time. That psychological battle that gets in their heads and it just deflates this team right afterwards.
yeah, it's hard. I mean, like, again, you want to see, I'm seeing in the chat too, you want to put the TED team with how little the instigator gets called though. I would have done it. Like I get it, like yes, the end result sucks, and with the hindsight of 2020 going after a guy like that and actually drawing an instigator penalty, that's the thing that's the frustrating part, right? Is because it's not that he drew the instigator penalty, it's the fact that the instigator penalty is so rarely called, and then just I don't know, boom, instigator. Like it's not a very common penalty. That's the frustrating part. For if you're a Vander Kane, that's the part I'm mad at because you see the instigator called so little in this league that it's one of those things where it's like, really, you're gonna call that now after all of that? Like, I get that people are upset because he took himself out of the game and
Yeah.
probably took the Sharks out of the game with it. You know what, hindsight 2020, I'm not disagreeing with you guys.
No.
You're right. It was a dumb thing to do, but with how little, I mean, I would have played, I don't blame him for playing the odds on that situation either of the instigator actually being called because it gets called so little.
And it's tough. And he take like Robin, he was standing up for himself.
Yeah.
But and also he's saying the refs have a vendetta against the Sharks. Well, they're never going to believe that. I do have
Well,
some.
I mean, there's certainly the refs aren't doing anything to dissuade that opinion
No,
lately,
no,
aren't they?
no. Looking through some stats that I pulled up while during the game, the Sharks have had 93 power play opportunities this season. They have allowed 109 power play opportunities against them. That one, the 109 power play opportunities against, is tied with Ottawa for the most in the league.
You know what though? But here's another
And
thing too.
they don't
I would,
they don't help
if you look at
themselves.
a lot of those, I would say a lot of those penalties are also lazy penalties taken by tired defenders that are out there for 15 million hours a game
Absolutely.
while they play Tim Heat for 3 minutes. Like I don't want to get into that,
No.
but I'm just saying like when people are tired, you're more likely to take penalties, and I think you would look at a lot of those penalties I've taken. I'm not saying that the Sharks haven't been given the raw deal by the refs in more than a few games this season, but you also again, like tired defenders make mistakes
Right.
that lead to penalties.
Yep.
That's happened a lot too.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's frustrating to see. Hoffman goes off for interference that rolls over to the third period. I thought the Sharks had a good period there in the second, but they had nothing to show. I mean, Bobrovsky was on his game this evening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's I think that yeah, the Sharks weren't like the Sharks weren't completely terrible in this game. Like they looked a lot better in this game than they did against Tampa. At the end of the day, though, I mean, effort counts for exactly that. Well, they tried hard, but you have to win games at some point too. And the Sharks,
Right.
like they can only rest on their amazing November for so long before, guess what? November's a distant memory and you're back at the bottom of the barrel again.
Yeah. Looking at it here. Um, you know, JL saying the Sharks are screwed when Johnny T chose his bed sheets over money.
Well,
Would have replaced Pav's production, goes to front of the cage, offensive catalyst. Instead, we blow our wad in EK65.
yeah, that's hard and it's hard because and maybe this opinion is becoming less and less popular, but I still walk away from Joe Pavelski at the end of last season because unless you're going to get him for one more year at decent money,
Yeah.
you can't sign a guy that age for 3 years. We've seen this again and again. I mean, Patrick Marleau's a San Jose Shark this year because for the same reason he was signed to just a stupid amount of money for 3 years. Like if you look at guys that have gotten the Marleau deal, like it hasn't worked out for anybody. You look at a similar deal signed. Obviously, the Marleau one didn't work out. I don't think the Pavelski one's going to work out for Dallas. Ilya Kovalchuk sure as hell not working out in LA.
Whoa, we
Like
dodged that bullet.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, look at those deals. Like, I understand what Pavs brought to the team, and I understand that Pavs. There's definite plays where Joe Pavelski's definitely missed on this team. But if they had brought him back, maybe you get this season out of him. But by the end of it, that's be one of the worst deals on the team, unfortunately.
And it's not like he's, destroying the competition right now. 31 games, 6 goals, 7 assists, 13 points. It's not exactly Pavelski-esque so far. He's got one goal in his last 5. And, it is what it is.
Sure.
And honestly, yeah, we could have saved the cap space for Nyquist. I would have loved that. Or Donskoy, who was on a 4-month schneid. I think that kind of did him in. And Pavs wanted more money, more years. But at the same time, you can't. We kind of get I hate to say this. We kind of got to get over Pavs. Just like how
Yeah.
we had to get over Patrick Marleau for the longest time. So
Here, something in the chat too. Like, we're talking like obviously about Erik Karlsson signing, right?
yeah,
Like, and I think like honestly, after that slow start, I think Erik Karlsson's been great for the Sharks. But obviously, that contract has caused problems for the Sharks, right? Like,
right.
those two things can be true. And the problem, it's one of those situations where the Sharks have been the bridesmaids so many times in these free agent signings, and then sometimes I think maybe you lose sight of the bigger picture and you're so excited to just be the bride for once,
Yeah,
and then you're like, oh crap, but where's the rest of the cap space that I have?
right. And I think that's the thing of trying to get back to the Cup final and being that one, being finally getting that one. So, and of course I see a lot of people talking about Dylan. The more and more that he stands alone as your only option to move somebody, the less is we're likely to get for him. To be honest. So
Yeah, he's a left shot defenseman. I mean, they don't exactly get you a premium. Unfortunately, if he shot the other hand, then that'd be great. Unfortunately, left shot D. Um, it sucks because you look at the cap space, you look at the guys that need money. I don't know how they keep Brendan Dillon going forward. That's just the reality of the situation that they've created, right? Um, so that he's the obvious guy at this point. Unfortunately, that is the only real liquid asset you have. Um, Unless you're going to, and whether you have to use him to get rid of, maybe you have to use him as a sweetener to, or a chaser to,
whoa,
so someone take a crappy content. Holy moly.
holy mackerel! Or since you're close to Toronto, holy Mackinac. 4 paws up for hockey. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the therapy session. Pabs would not save us either. We needed better goalie and forwards. Um, I kind of feel bad. We kind of have to leave that up for a bit. So, 4 paws. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, um, But
And here's the other thing too, all right? Jeff Turner, come on, Erik Karlsson has been one of our better players, and Brent Burns, I think, gets a lot of. He's not getting like at the start. There was a lot of like, well, Brent Burns has been doing terrible, but damn that Erik Karlsson. Like Brent Burns also is eating a significant amount of cap for the amount of not great he's been. And that's the thing that I think has been the problem is you had the team, right? You had Brent Burns started about here, Erik Karlsson started about here. Erik Karlsson has come up, but Brent Burns has kind of just stayed there. Yeah. He hasn't really, and that's frustrating too. But the problem is that the reason why Burns doesn't get the hell that a lot of, Erik Karlsson gets is because Erik Karlsson was the last guy signed. He was the guy that completely tipped, like his contract. I don't say he was the guy, but his contract was the one that completely tipped over the apple cart.
And for that matter, too, when Burns signed his big deal, which was a big deal at the time, up until Doughty, decided to get a ridiculous deal. There was some question about Burns's deal. And also, it also helps that he had, Norris candidates going to All-Star games and such.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of brushes that aside. It also helps that the Sharks were 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
So
look.
That's kind of where I see it.
And it's not like the Sharks are the only team in the league that are signing these deals either.
Right.
Like that, this is the reality of it. If you want to pay these guys, unfortunately, to pay them well past they're going to be good, and you have to pay them a lot of money. That's just the reality of the situation. The problem is for the Sharks is they've gone to that well one too many times, and now you can't. You're having trouble with filling in the depth around it, right? You have I think there's definitely some there. You have a couple of elite players on this team. The problem is you still need a supporting cast. This isn't basketball. Right. Like you can't have one guy carry you to a championship. Well, maybe you can have two in Edmonton. We'll see how that turns out in the playoffs.
Right.
But Edmonton aside, this isn't a recipe for success.
Right. No. Chris says, and he mentions it. A lot of saying we're pointing at the Kalani from Burns as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I was one of them.
Michael Meyer. Look at Toronto's Capel. And they're a young and up and coming team, and they've paid a boatload to their kids for a very long time.
Yeah, but again, you need. I would. If I look at the difference there is all those guys aren't going to be 38 by the time their deals are done. Like those guys are coming into the best years of their career, whereas the Sharks, you look at, when Vlasic's up, when Burns is up, when some of these contracts are up, these guys are going to be well in their 30s.
Yeah.
Those guys in Toronto, at least they're going to be in their late 20s when their deals are up.
Mm-hmm. Where they're gonna
I would rather have Toronto's situation than ours, because their situation, I think you can win with that.
And that's what Dubas was going for there, and well, not just Dubas, I should say that's what Patrick Marleau was going there for. So, and anywho, does Martin Jones have a full no move? No, I believe he, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a modified no trade. It is the Doug Wilson special. Most of these guys that don't have no move clauses, they have like a 3-team list that you can trade them to, and Martin Jones is one of those players. Last I checked, I'm going to confirm that, but I'm almost positive it's a 3-team trade list. It's a 3-team trade list. Like, give me a break. I don't understand how anyone can defend Doug Wilson at this point, because I get that Doug Wilson has done a lot of good things. Like, this isn't a black and white thing. I said this in Discord yesterday. This isn't a black and white thing. You don't have to be all bad or all good. Doug Wilson's done a lot of great things for this team, but this last group of contracts that he's handed out are going to bury this team. Yeah. Period.
And you have 7 contracts that have a modified no trade or no move.
Right, which is supposed to be flexibility, but when you can trade to 3 teams, how flexible is that? Yeah, it's not a no movement clause. Congratulations.
Yeah, and so, all right. Well, final stats on the night. Yes, they scored another goal, and then put it in an empty netter. Not the fun night for Sharks hockey. And trust me, I think the Sharks are going to be a bunch of guys that are probably one of the few that want to get the heck out of the Sunshine State for sure. The final stats 33-31 in favor of Florida. Faceoffs were about even. The Sharks had a slight advantage there. On the power play, the Sharks did finally get off of their power play schneid, 1 for 3 on this one. Panthers do go 2 for 4, marking the second time that the Sharks allowed 2 power play goals in this game. Outside Evander Kane's 835, everybody was well into the double digits. Gambrell and Gregor probably the next closest at just a shade under 11 and a half minutes. The defense was, the same around. Heed and Dillon with the low spots at 1835. Even Carlson and Burns played 20-22 respectively. So
Doug Wilson will never be fired as long as Plattner's. You know what? I don't know, because man, if that arena keeps getting as empty as it is, eventually maybe Hasso Plattner starts looking at his pocketbook and says, maybe I need someone else to start looking at things. I never say never. Like I am of the opinion too that he probably gets promoted out of his job and not fired, but never say never, man, because if that arena gets any more empty for any more stretch of time, all bets are off, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we all know about what the Niners did today, and that can't help the Sharks situation for sure. When it comes to spending the dollar and such, it doesn't help that the Warriors are muy el stinko grande, but that's how it is in the world of professional sports and fighting for that dollar big time. So, all right, with that, is it time?
Yeah, why not?
All right, give us something to smile about.
Have the goddamn common courtesy to give him a reach around.
It's wraparound time, folks. Good news. Let's be honest. Good news. The Rangers are up 4-0 on the Las Vegas Knights. Panarin, Kuhre, Trouba, and Fast goals to make it 4-0 midway through the second period. In Chicago, it's tied up 3-3 between the Desert Dogs and the Blackhawks. DeBrincat with his 8th, Taves his 6th. Currently, in the first period, Buffalo is up 1-0 on the Edmonton Oilers. Calaposo with the goal there. Earlier today, the Winnipeg Jets, thank you very much, 3-2 over the Ducks. In the Teemu Selanne Bowl, Hellebuck did not hella suck with his victory there. Scheifele with 2 goals in that one. The Panthers beat us 5-1, and that's what that's the latest on a Sunday of the wraparound. You care to take this one on, Ian? Doug Wilson Jr. is your next Sharks GM.
It wouldn't that type of a situation wouldn't shock me at all, unfortunately, and that's unfortunate, because I think you'd have one. Because again, I feel like the likelihood. I'm not saying that Doug Wilson can't be fired, but the likelihood is he gets promoted out of his position, and then someone else steps into the GM role. Doug Wilson Jr. Is a guy that the fans seem to like right now, but that's based on one draft where they took a player in Ryan Merkley who is not your typical, that's not your typical Sharks pick. So it feels like a change in philosophy. I'm not, I still really like Ryan Merkley as a player. Is it concerning that, a guy who's got a bunch of points this year in the OHL doesn't even get an invite to Team Canada's camp? Yeah, that concerned me a little bit, as well as everything else. But I don't want to put this evil out there, but just hear me out for a second. Hypothetically, down the rabbit hole, Ryan Merkley doesn't work out. How positive is that? How positive is the reception of Doug Wilson Jr. if that happens, right? Because right now he's the shiny new toy, right, that we all seem to like. But I don't know if it's another missed first round pick. I don't know how receptive the fans would be, like, oh, this guy's going to be the GM now. I don't want to put the evil out there. It's an interesting but it's still an interesting thought. And it would, I think if that did happen tomorrow, I think some people would be like, holy effing nepotism. But I think some people would be really positive towards that change. I don't know. I'd have to see what came, if it was just more of the same or not. But I'm just curious, with a little more time put in, how receptive Sharks fans would be to that. Because I think today they'd be positive with that change. I think some would be. I think a fair pocket would be anyway. But I don't know. I mean, it's not something. The jury's still out on that one, right? Yeah. I mean, until we really see, we have a track record to judge Doug Wilson on. Doug Wilson Jr. not so much,
right? And let's be honest here. Until Merkley gets into the NHL and let's see what impact he has. Yeah, the jury's going to be out. I mean, you can't just go for that there.
Michael Meyer also brings up a good point, because I think it's very important. Like, I know, like, I throw out like Hasso needs to, to do something because he owns the team or whatever. But it's hard because you want that perfect level of ownership involvement, right? You don't want them to be completely meddling like you have in Vancouver, where they meddle to the, yes, get it in.
Thank you. Did somebody say Vancouver?
Okay.
Thank you.
You don't want that situation where the owner meddles to the obvious detriment of the team.
Right.
But you don't want them completely hands off where the inmates run the asylum either. And I feel like, in Hasso-Plattner, to his credit, he spends the money. And you could do a lot worse for an owner than Hasso-Plattner. You could probably do better, but you could do a lot worse.
Yeah. And I mean, you could be on the cheap side. You could look at what Melnyk has done in Ottawa and make it really bad, or you can do something and be proactive and go for it all. And I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, when we've spoken to Doug Wilson, you get appreciative. He gets appreciative of how much Hasso gives him. To go out and spend the money to make this team a cup contender year in and year out. So,
right, yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, again, you could see where the Sharks are hemorrhaging ticket holders to, to just apathy and everything else in the Bay Area, and you could have the owner, respond to that by pulling the purse strings. That didn't happen.
Yeah, and it's Yeah, you could hold out for a new arena if Google wants to take over or whatnot, but he's not doing that right now. So that's a whole other topic. Anywho,
yeah, that's another rabbit hole.
We'll give you a quick Barracuda.
Ooh, Barracuda.
That's right. It's so quick you don't get the full intro. They went 1-0-1 in Ontario. They destroyed them 9-2. On Friday night, they lose in a shootout 5-4. The boys down in the AHL are helping out. So we got some hope, folks. We got some hopes, and that will be very key. I know as we just got this in the moment that was there goes my tongue acting like the Sharks play tonight. The moment when Wyshynski retweets you. So. That's always good to see. So, Wish, if you're watching, thank you. Hope you're enjoying the Bay Area.
I remember when, like, highlight of, like, when I was writing nonstop and when one of my articles got picked up and, like, used in a Wish piece, that was, like, gold for me. The best.
Hey,
best. Even if you disagreed with me.
Right. Hey, you have that. I got retweeted by Steve Dangle this week. I'm working my way up. So, all right. So, Tuesday, Nashville.
Heaven help us.
Enough said. All right. Well, in case you missed anything or you want to watch this again, check us out on tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. You name it, you love it. Stitcher. If there's one we're missing, let us know. And of course, you can always hit us up on all the social media platforms. You can find us there. Ian, thank you for coming in
Yeah.
last minute. I know I was all riled up here, and thankfully you calmed me down.
That's what I'm due.
Your final thoughts or where the people can find you?
You can always find me at Ian Blogs Hockey, trying really hard to not to try and keep the even keel Twitter feed going. I know it's getting a little hysterical as the games drag on here. It's hard, man. I mean, look at your 4 games in December. You've been outscored 20-6. It's hard to keep an even keel with that. But yeah, I mean, you can find me there. Final thoughts: the Sharks need to, if they can't keep pucks out of their net, then gets really hard to put pucks in the net. And if you're not putting pucks in the net and you can't keep them out of your net, look at, you're averaging 5 goals a game in December so far. And again, that's just an arbitrary period of time that I'm picking on, but they have to keep the puck out of their net. And if they can't find a way to do that, then nothing else is going to follow, because this team has proven now, I think we've gone far enough in the season now, this team isn't going to win shootouts with teams.
Yep.
You're not going to win scoring races with teams. You're going to have to figure out how to keep the puck out of your own net. And that's going to be really difficult when Martin Jones is starting the most of your games.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at PuckGuy14 on the Twitter and the Instagram. We'll be back with you on Tuesday night following Sharks and Predators. However, for more of a fix, tonight at 8 p.m., the Pucknologist will go live with Ian, Rocket, and Hockey Jerk.
AJ, not me.
AJ. Oh, God. I'll catch hell for that later. But AJ, Rocket, and Jerk will be on to talk about the week that was in the Sharks hockey, along with everything else that is going on around the hockey world. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel on that. And, of course, to do that, just hit our subscribe button that I'm going to pull up right now. And I'll see you on Tuesday night. And until then, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real teal. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you tonight at 8 and on Tuesday.